Welcome to this last day of the second edition of the collaboration French Tech Community Seoul and the FKCCI for Tech4Good Summit 2021. And today is dedicated to Tech for Health and Impact Funding Day. I will start the program of today with the opening remarks from Ms. Bosun Kim, co-founder of ASIANCE and Honorary Board member of French Tech Community Seoul. Bosun, it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Very nice to meet you all. As introduced, my name is Bosun Kim. I'm honorary board member of French Tech Seoul and also co-founder of ASIANCE, which is a founding member of the French Tech Seoul as well. I co-founded ASIANCE in 2004 with Olivier Moreau and Alexandre Lebrun as a Seoul-based digital agency. 17 years later, ASIANCE became a branded company working with major global brands, not only for their digital marketing, but also for their technology and innovation solutions. I'm really happy and honored to open the third and the last day of the summit with some special partners who have helped us to make this event possible since the very beginning of Tech4Good Summit adventure in 2019. As a Korean entrepreneur, I was honored to have the opportunity to be the president of French Tech Community Seoul in 2019 and 2020. Among many great events I was part of during those 2 years, the most unforgettable moments were definitely during the first Tech4Good Summit in 2019. I want to share with you how we started this project and why we did so. As the president of French Tech Seoul in May 2019, I participated in the first French Tech Community Summit, which was held in Station F. It was an amazing opportunity for me to meet other French Tech community representatives coming from 48 countries, and I learned about the philosophy and the value behind French Tech. For some of you who don't know well French Tech is a French government policy for sure and structure to support French startup ecosystem. This initiative by the government led to the creation of strong communities by entrepreneurs all around the world. French Tech Seoul is one of them. These communities have very strong values, among which the most important one for me would be help each other and first give before receiving, open and mutual respect, seeking for growth. And of course, Tech4Good. The French Tech Community Summit also invited us to the Viva Tech, which was organized at Paris Expo Porte Versailles. I was really surprised by its scale and by the high quality program. But the most impressive part for me was the focus put on the Tech4Good vision. At the time in Korea, Tech4Good was not a famous topic yet, but in 2019, Tech4Good already seems to be the purpose of the Viva Tech event. All the participants, from French President Emmanuel Macron to all representatives from big corporations through very early stage startups in all kinds of industry, spoke out about Tech4Good, what and how they were doing to make the world a better place. After that experience, coming back to Korea, with the board of French Tech Seoul at the time, I decided to organize the first Tech4Good event in Korea. The first summit was held in Dongdaemun Design Plaza, some of you remember, in November 2019, and over 250 people from about 10 countries participated in the event physically. I'm proud of the positive feedback and the result of the event. Many people told us that it was one of the most interesting events that they were ever attend in Korea. It helped some Korean startups to be better known in France and vice versa. It created new partnerships, opened the interest of many people to Tech4Good project and initiative, and help our two countries become closer. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to wait a few months to adjust the format of event. Finally, we are having the second summit fully online with a broader theme, France, Korea, and beyond. As Oriane explained, we prepare a lot of sessions with great speakers and experts today. We will start with digital health. French Tech Board member JUHN, CEO of NRDU, will moderate this session with 5 high-level speakers from Korea and France. I will come back to moderate the second session, supporting Tech4Good project, with 4 experts in this field. If you have some Tech4Good project in mind or already in action, don't miss this session. It will give you a lot of inspiration and insight. Then we will have reverse pitch from 3 amazing experts in investment side. Last session will be the award ceremony for the winners of the pitch session, Tech for Society and Tech for Earth, that took place earlier this week. Enjoy the day, and I hope you will find something meaningful for your own journey of Tech4Good in our program. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Bosun, for your introduction and opening remarks of the day. I now leave the floor to Jordan to start the Tech4Health session.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm genuinely very excited about this session. We have, as Bosun said, 5 great entrepreneurs who are going to tell us more about what they think the future of healthcare is, and I can't wait to have this discussion. So, as Bosun said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of NR2. We're a startup based in between Europe and Korea, and we're mapping startups in China and Korea through a search engine that is actually available online. Now, as an introduction to the session, what I wanted to do is really show how startups in Korea are really pushing forward in between healthcare and digital technologies. So what I'm going to do is very quickly just show you how many startups here in South Korea within this ecosystem. And then I'm going to leave the floor to everybody to introduce themselves on the round table. So I'll just quickly start to share my screen and show you if that works, and show you very quickly what I mean when I say a lot of startups are currently here in South Korea. So the way it works is the search engine is looking through data dynamically, which means that it sees startups as they are today. Now, what I'm going to show you is an extract from it, which has been taken a few months ago. So it's not the latest data, but it should still tell you a bit about what's happening in the ecosystem. So if you look at, yes, this. So in Korea right now, the startup ecosystem is extremely dynamic, and a lot of startups are being created, and a lot of people are investing in those startups, should they be private or public investors. What's particularly interesting for us today is this little slide here, which I wanted to give you as an introduction. You know, France and South Korea have a great reputation for healthcare, and not only Korea has great hospitals and great doctors, there are also a lot of startups being created, sometimes from university and sometimes just from very ambitious entrepreneurs. So this is just to give you an idea of what's happening here. You see that there's about more than 1,000 startups who are trying to revolutionize healthcare, and they're doing this using AI for a lot of them, and more generally digital technologies. Now, these startups have been established, 62% of them in the last 5 years, which means it's a very, very dynamic market. And they've already raised $2 billion, those that you see here on this map. So the idea today is really to give the voice to those startups or those companies who are trying to push the boundaries. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. And everybody here on the round table is going to introduce themselves quickly and then we can start into a discussion on what they're doing. So maybe we can start with Ilsong, if that works.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Ilsong Lee. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Cipherome. We're based in Silicon Valley, San Jose, California, United States. But also we have a small research center and office here in Seoul, right across the street from Seoul National University Hospital, where our main technology was developed. So the way we're organized, we have a lot of basic research scientists located in South Korea. We also have headquarters and the management, as well as people who drive clinical adoptions located in San Jose, California. My personal background is chemical engineering and spent most of my career in semiconductor and display equipment industry. Over time, I got to know more about digital health and then got involved and ended up co-founding Cipherome and been CEO since 2015. And I'm very happy to be part of Tech4Good, and thank you very much for the organizers to invite.
Awesome, thank you, Ilsong. Thomas, how about you introduce yourself next?
So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Thomas Serval. I'm the CEO of Baracoda Group, based out of Paris, where you see me in the early morning. What we do is, so I'm a veteran for the tech industry. I've been doing connected electronic devices for almost 25 years. I was also an executive at Google and Microsoft. 7 years ago, we decided to see how we can use our two expertise, which was building devices and AI, to have a big impact on people's health. And we founded Baracoda with the concept of daily health tech. So we take ordinary objects that you use every day. Most of them are in the bathroom, and by adding a little bit of AI and connectivity, we try to have an impact on people's behavior. So our first success was by connecting a toothbrush, where we are now the world leader in connected toothbrushes, and now we are reinventing the bathroom with an operating system called CHOI, where we connect every device in the bathroom, mostly mirrors, scales, and by just letting those daily objects collecting some data and adding a layer of fun interaction and AI for prediction, we show that we can have an impact on your overall health. And it's just the beginning of the journey, and I'm super excited to be with you.
Young, would you mind introducing yourself? Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. All right. My name is Young John. I'm a CEO of a company called Wellysis. We are actually a spin-off company from Samsung SDS. My background is actually from IT in healthcare the last 25 years in United States. Worked for Johnson & Johnson over 10 years, and also with Kaiser Permanente. And what I found was that the healthcare has to move out of hospital into more personal home, and also transforming healthcare from cure to care. And that has been my passion for last 20 years. And so when I had an opportunity to spin off from Samsung with some of the technology that was developed within the Samsung, and thus I took that opportunity. And what we do right now is we develop a continuous ECG monitoring device with AI technology. So with us is you have a patch that you stick on your body, and will continue to collect the vital signs. And just like this information needs to be looked, and there's no way that human can look at every beat or every vital signs that is being collected. And that's where we use the AI technology. And I believe that personalization and a lot of decision will come based on personal data collected through the vital signs. So I'm very excited to share some of my experience and my thought, and also hear from colleagues here. And thank you for your invitation.
Thank you so much. Marwan, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone from Geneva, Switzerland, and good afternoon for every one of you in Korea. My name is Marwan. I'm the founder and managing director of HCK, Healthcare Connect, and our mission is to scale accuracy in diagnostic. I am 32 years old. I studied pharmaceutical sciences and then business. Just to give you a little background, I have the immense chance to come from a family with a long tradition in healthcare distribution. We distribute for Pfizer, Glaxo, AstraZeneca, and other big pharma companies. And after my studies, I worked in our family group for 3 years. I was evolving in the business development department. My role was basically to identify new products for the markets we cover. And while I was doing that, I noticed two things. First, a shift from multinationals to startups that develop products with a transformative potential to improve public health. And also that the model of distribution that we were proposing to multinational is not suitable for startups. I founded my company in 2013 in Geneva with a unique model of distribution. First, we focused on oncology products. And since 2018, we created HCK, which is a new segment with a focus on artificial intelligence. We're very proud to collaborate with AI companies from all around the world, from Lithuania to the US, but also in Korea, we have a partner that is called Vuno, and that is a global leader in AI with a strong traction, let's say. And we're currently introducing these algorithms in centers in Morocco, Switzerland, Algeria, Nigeria. I'm very happy to be here, and many thanks for the organizers.
Thank you so much. I think only Taegeun needs an introduction now.
Okay, hello, I'm Kevin Choi, the CEO of Medi. I would like to express my opinion on digital healthcare and briefly introduce our solutions. So I think that the digital transformation in healthcare, the transformation into digital healthcare, eventually led to more information from the human body than even before. Because this was possible, it could be applied to preventative medicine and smart medicine. So if you look at the technology that digital healthcare is dealing with right near us, it's much easier to detect and track chronic diseases than before, or to predict and prevent them before they coming. And there are many other inconveniences that doctors have felt, such as tired alarming or chatting in the hospital. So I would like to explain quite more about how our company and our technology works as the digital healthcare. After becoming a modernized society, the biggest cause of death is circulatory mechanical diseases. However, fatal conditions such as heart attack, angina, and stroke are surprisingly difficult to predict before they occur. Then how could we prevent it? Current standards are cardiovascular risk assessment and risk stratification by CVD risk engine. It accurately evaluated personalized cardiovascular risk and prevents circulatory diseases with medical treatment accordingly. Medi is the first ophthalmic AI diagnosis company to successfully commercialize retinal cardiovascular risk engine that is clinically proven to be as effective as CAC score. So therefore, our solution works as a bedside testing on the front lines of care because it could predict cardiovascular events as same performance and value with cardiac CT, CAC, and it's based on retinal AI test to be safely and quickly photographed. Our solution allows primary healthcare, including optometrist, a simple one-touch analysis in less than 3 minutes. If it is equipped nationally, we expect to reduce about 30% of cardiac death that have been difficult to find with existing system. Actually, this is not just our argument. What I said based on our published paper in this May and last October as a cover paper in the Lancet Digital Health, the top tier medical journal in the digital health area. In addition, Retina AI can predict systemic diseases because the changes in atherosclerosis in the body system cause damage and changes in the blood vessels and tissues of the retina. So this is possible because of artificial intelligence beyond our cognition, which has been with us before. This is possible because of artificial intelligence beyond our cognition, which has been with us before, but has not been seen with the human's eyes. I think the digital healthcare analyzes information that was previously inaccessible or accessible but difficult to interpret accurately, giving new insights and improving the healthcare system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. This is actually a great start of the discussion. You raises questions which I'm very keen to discuss around. Just before I start, just would like to say that I see there's quite a few people already listening to us, so we'd like to make this a live discussion. So if you have any questions or reactions to what we're discussing, feel free to drop a message in the Q&A section, and I'll try my best to catch it and integrate it into the discussion, so that it's not just us, it's also all of you. But so yeah, I mean, very impressed by all of your companies and what you're doing. I think what you're raising, Kevin, or Taegeun, is very interesting, because what you're saying is we're now starting to have access to data which we didn't have before, and by analyzing this data, we're able to predict potential diseases or problems, or at least increase our probability of finding them. And so I would think my first question, which is linked to my PhD when it was now a few years ago when I was working on genomic data, and it was something which was quite expensive and difficult to access. And I feel like with few years gone, now it's becoming easier to access it and to analyze it. And I think Ilsong, if I'm not mistaken, you're working on data like this. So I'm quite keen to hear your view on these data specifically, and maybe more generally on data accessibility and what it means for healthcare.
Hi, yes, Jordan. Thank you for the leading the discussion on genomics. So I don't know if everybody recalls, in 2003, there was a big event held at the White House in the United States between Tony Blair, back then he was the Prime Minister of UK, and Bill Clinton being the President of the United States, making the joint announcement that the scientific community in the world working together being able to generate human genome map, meaning that was the first time ever that a single person's human genome was available to scientists in the world. And back then the premise was that because we now have access to a full genomic data for a human, we should be able to decide where how the disease occurs for different people, and from there being able to find the right cures for right people at the right time. And that promise was made again in 2003. Now we're sitting here in 2021 looking at what's been done to take advantage of the information that's been available. The short answer is not quite. It turns out that the human genome 3 billion base pair of the digital information has been available, but to understand the relative influences or the root causes of all the diseases and the cancers, has been very difficult because they're very, very complex set of data. Now, with the development of deep learning and AI, etc., in certain segments, there has been tremendous progress. And one area that the company that I work for called Cipherome is called pharmacogenomics. In plain English, it means that take human genome data, trying to understand how each individual responds to different drugs. And it's very much related to the metabolic pathways of humans. So for example, if you're in East Asian you tend to eat a lot of carbohydrates. And your system over time, over several thousand years, maybe 10 to 20,000 years, your body become more used to metabolizing carbohydrates. Whereas, Eskimo people from, Alaska, and their main diet is, animal fat and other meat products, and therefore their system is not very used to metabolizing carbohydrate, whereas they're able to metabolize animal fat and other meat products much better than East Asians. And so it's all built into your genomic profile. And there's been some recent researches last 30 to 40 years where understanding how human genome profile affects the drug responses. Now, when most of the drugs are developed from Second World War on, these drugs are clinically tried on few thousand people to make sure they have the right efficacies and the safety profile for human. Unfortunately, they could not clinically try these drugs on everybody, so they had to pick fairly homogeneous populations, so largely European descent or Caucasian population. And so they were represented in the clinical studies, but the rest of the population and other ethnic groups are not. And so recently in pharmacogenomic discipline, there has been a lot of breakthrough researches trying to understand certain deficiencies in genomic profile or loss of function of certain protein coming from the fact that you have certain mutations in your genomic profile significantly affects how each individual personalizes, metabolizes drug. So if you know ahead of time how each individual's genomic profiles are configured, then you would be able to predict, more importantly, prevent drug side effects or treatment failures. And so in the last 5 to 10 years, in addition to these data becoming more prevalent, the technologies in the DNA sequencing technology allowed these sequencing to become very, very affordable. So it used to cost hundreds of $1,000s to sequence one person. Now it's about $800, and it's going to go down even further. And so with this information, you should be able to really understand how each individual responses to certain drugs. And that's the main science and vision behind Cipherome. And one of the key things we're doing, in fact, I'm sitting in South Korea because the main algorithm and the technology came from Seoul National University. However, we decided to set up our corporate headquarters and do the business in the Silicon Valley because there's a pretty significant healthcare restrictions when it comes to genomic business. And so we decided to set up a company in Silicon Valley. However, we have a lot of the technology synergies between Korea, where these basic researches are done, and a lot of the actual clinical adoption and validation is done in the United States. Our vision is to take that data and go beyond South Korea and US, and at some point, hopefully, we'll be able to introduce this technology to the rest of Asia as well as in Europe. And so, just to kind of summarize and finish, a lot of times when I go buy a set of clothes or buy new shoes, I usually try it on to see if it fits. And even when you try to do a blood transfusion, you phenotype your blood type, A, B, or O, and then you pick the right blood type and you do the transfusion. Drug should be the same way. And so there are many different classes of drugs that does the same thing. And yet, right now, the doctors are prescribing the drugs without this critical information. And our vision and mission is to be able to take human genomic profile and be able to provide this information to the right people at the right time with the right information. And hopefully there will be ways to take advantage of participants from this Tech4Good Summit and be able to accelerate that process. Thanks for listening.
Well, this is fascinating. I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to react, but I feel like there's two things you said which I'd be very keen to send back to Thomas and Young, because you've mentioned the ability to have access to data at a very cheap price, and also questions around regulations to use this kind of data. You've mentioned that in the context of genomic, but I know that both Young and Thomas are also working with data that they acquire. So I'm quite keen to know what you guys think about this and how it applies to your own work. Maybe we can start with Young, if that works.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, previously, before I got into Wellysis, I did work on the genomics, so I do understand, the one that you guys talked about. The area that we are also working on is, yes, there is this genomic data that becomes available from the lab. But also what we realize is when we try to do understand more about the human, is also about your daily life. So when you are at work or at sports, or with your family, or whether you're sleeping, there are tons of vital signs that the body sends, and that information also has very valuable information, just like genomic data. And so, we developed this device that can collect this data. Now the issue is, now we got too many data, right? When you actually go to the hospital and do a cardiovascular scanning, you have only 30-second data, or a snapshot of a video of your heart moving. But now when you're wearing for 3 days or 14 days, there are too many data, right? So what we're doing is to really understand all the changes that's giving you from all the vital signs, and also create a baseline. And the baseline should be, I believe, should be a personalized. A lot of things that we talked about is public health, is about using data about the public and apply to a person. But I think we are in the technology era where everyone is wearing, having this huge, powerful technology with you. So why don't we use those technology to process the data that's being generated from your body? So that's kind of where we believe will transform healthcare to be more personalized. An AI engine that is developed understand me, right? Why these irregular beats are happening. Am I just rolling out of the bed, or am I in stress, fighting with my wife, or with my kids, right? There are all those other environmental area that the vital signs gives you a signal. So then with that information, now we can start providing a predictive or preventive guidelines. So that's kind of where I believe a lot of this new technology will enable us to not only collect more data, but also use that data to understand and provide better guidance.
Yeah. Maybe I can follow up on this one. So I agree with everything that has been said. I think we have a common vision about the fact that technology and the latest discovery will change the world and really improve people's health. I'm not coming from the healthcare industry. I'm really coming from I'm a geek that end up dealing with data that happen to be health data. So I have a different perspective. And when I started looking at this field, my biggest surprise was the following information I learned from WHO, which is if everyone in the world were washing their hands 7 times a day, 90% of all the disease in the world would disappear. So it's an impressive learning to say that we are trying to solve a problem, having people in better health, where we can have an even bigger impact if we can have an impact on everybody's behavior. And And so, I am like young in the preventive healthcare space. One of the reasons is when you're dealing with patient data and clinical data, the cycle of innovation is longer because there's a lot of restriction for a right reason about how you can use them and what you can claim. The fact that you are, working with daily data and non-significant data opens a brand new space that is extremely impactful. So our approach was quite different because we couldn't have access to all the clinical studies and the right mindset in medicine. Is we come from the fact that we believe health is a journey, and it's really inspired actually more by Asian medicine than Western medicine. So a lot about keeping this balance between a different set of environment and personal behavior. So in order to collect the data, we have identified 2 or 3 important blockers that we are trying to remove. The first one is we don't need to build devices that collect data. All the companies around here are doing it. And there are more and more that will do it on the run. Your phone is collecting more and more data, every other device. So one of the key elements is how do we connect all those devices that collects data together, so we can build a data set that can be significant. And we've chosen the bathroom, which is a place where the big mega company like Google, Amazon, etc., have always fear to come because it's super intimate. And it's also not always very clean. So if you're Apple, you don't want to build an Apple toilet, etc. So we found it was a good space for a startup to survive, where the big guys will not kill you immediately. And I'm coming from them, so actually I'm pretty aware about the fact that you don't want to be in front of Samsung, you don't want to be right heads to head in front of Apple or Alibaba or any of those guys. So from a strategic standpoint, we felt that the best place to start learning about people's behavior and have 1 hour of intimacy and ability to collect data with the user, where the bathroom was a perfect space. So we interconnected and we have built a system that allows connected devices in the bathroom to work together. The second thing is when we decided to connect this space was that you don't want to share any of your data to the internet or to the cloud. I mean, the biggest fear of people in the bathroom is to see their naked picture on a social network, on Facebook, etc. So the second key element, which we are all part of, is the element of trust. And then I have a competitive advantage, as you know, French and German, but it's a really European thing. But the French are obsessed with their privacy for good and bad reason. So French has one of the strictest, I don't know Korea, so I don't want to be careful about that, but France has one of the strictest law with regard to how do you handle private data. And so we implemented in full the European regulation called GDPR in our system. So every data that is collected in the bathroom is fully controlled by the user. So you don't share any data you don't want, and I can go in details, but the data policy, or how do we collect the data, especially when you do it at scale, and what kind of technical architecture are you putting in place to guarantee the user that there is no risk, or at least you control the level of risk to get your data outside without your consent, is the second pillar. So connecting every device and making sure you have full control over your data. And that's why we build this KOS ecosystem of devices and privacy. The other part that we have learned is a third pillar. If you look at connected device, especially when they're casual, 80% of them have no longer used after 2 weeks. So you can have the best data collection, you can even have the best data offering. If you don't create a certain level of stickiness in what you're building or fun, then it's just a waste. So the third pillar of our system has been about gamification and rewarding. So how do we make the fact that you are allowed to share your data for all the benefits that have been described before me, fun and easy. And the two learning and what we have implemented as a general thought in our latest invention have always been that as much as possible, no intervention, meaning seamless. If you have to press 2 buttons, if you are making the routine in the morning more complex, you're gonna get a big drop. So whatever you can do seamlessly, you do it seamlessly. And the second has been daily victory. So to make it fun every day, you need to give someone a pleasure, a little thing every day. And it looks very silly, but in terms of product design, in terms of how do you design system that really will create the data set that we need to actually have an impact on people's health. And if you have those two things, we have seen 80% improvement of people brushing their hair, their teeth. We have seen incredible improvement in really daily hygiene. And the last thing that we have seen coming is that more and more, it's not going to be about one device or 2 devices telling you what to do, and you need to have 2 or 3 apps, but you want to have a very simple interface that will only give you the relevant information when needed. As it's been said before, you are swallowed by his data. So we detect your mood and we analyze your behavior toward the information we are sending you back. Because if I'm telling you you're fat in the morning when you already had a bad day, or you had a little bit of a problem because you had a bad night, the effect will be actually you don't want to hear about me anymore. And so we not only provide the data, collect the data, but design interface that implement AI in order to give you a sensitive information at the right time. And that's actually, it was a surprise to me, that's actually very unexplored in terms of making health have an impact on people's health.
This is fascinating. I mean, I'm a big user of all these devices that measures or data and biosignals, and I relate to what you're saying. I think it's very true. Like when I'm working hard and my watch tells me move around because you're being lazy, it kind of like it's very funny how it makes me feel. So yeah, this is very interesting, and basically it raises questions around. So we've talked about data accessibility, what we can do with it, and then I feel like one question which I'd like maybe Marwan to answer is I know you're connecting things together, people, product, services, and regulation seems to come up in every description we're hearing. So do you have a view on that, and how do you see regulations and data transfers among different people, devices, and countries?
Yeah, it's quite a complicated question because we cover several countries, and regulation is really related to each country, and there is regulation in many sides. I think Thomas mentioned the GDPR, which is the European way of to regulate the data use, especially personal data. But then there is also the regulatory approval of the product as a medical device, and that changes. In our case, let's take the example, for example, of African markets. If you get an FDA approval, you have the access of the whole American population. If you have a CE mark, you can access with your product the whole European community. In Africa, you need to have a marketing authorization for each country, which means that from a vendor perspective that wants to sell its products in African markets, they really need to be sure that there is a market, because else we cover 15 markets, else you will have to get a regulatory approval on 15 markets. So that's the first layer, being able to put the product in the market. And this is why our approach is that we try to say always that we know that we don't know. And in order to learn, what we try to do is really have a step-by-step approach where we start by talking with key opinion leaders, potential clients, but also the regulatory, let's say, the instance that gives a regulatory approval. And then we try to make pilots. And these pilots allows us to understand very well the regulatory environment of each country. let's say, for example, we want to install a product in Morocco. We will quickly understand how we have to handle the patient data and what kind of approval do we need. Is it a clinical trial or not, and so on. So my advice is to always, as from a distributor perspective, to always assume that we don't know and to go step by step, especially that all these regulatory environments are evolving quickly with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if people in the audience have questions around this, now that you know what everybody's doing and how they're thinking about life, but if you have, I'm very keen to hear. I think I'd love to know from anybody on the roundtable, like, so, you know, with all these, where do you think we're going? Do you think we're going into a world in which my watch is going to tell me everything about my body, and then I can have a personalized drug every time I have a headache? Or is it, how do you feel about that?
Well, can I pick up on the privacy issue as well as the data availability related to the regulatory?
Of course.
Yeah, so I think one of the key thing that around these digital health and, you know, a lot of these data being available as opposed to being kept for privacy issues, and also try to productize medical device, that there are different regulatory issues. So these are very complex issues that not a single company or maybe even a single country cannot help solve easily. So one of the key government initiatives that currently our company, Cipherome, is being benefited is biobanks from UK, also biobanks from United States called All of Us. So for example, UK government had this initiative called UK Biobank for a number of years. And as recent as 2019, they allowed private companies like Cipherome to apply for research and being able to download 500,000 people worth of genomic data as well as their medical records. Obviously, they're all anonymized to protect donors' privacy, but this type of massive data driven by government helps private companies like us to really be able to digitally test our product and improve our algorithms using AI, deep learning technology to really accelerate the development. And now, United States government is doing the similar thing called All of Us. Then they're going to have 1 million people, and they're up to about 300,000 people. And then they're going to allow private companies to apply for research toward the end of this year. So these type of government-driven standard data set that can really help private companies to be able to use without violating privacies or have issues with the government regulation will really help accelerate the development of digital health solutions overall.
Because it was a really good question. So let me actually just read the question, see if it fits into how everybody wanted to answer what we were discussing. So the question is from Michael, who's the founder at Trinity Echo, and he asks, what do you think is what technology or case study that impressed you on the use of digital health in managing COVID pandemic? I'm very keen to hear your thought about this. I would say that actually, and this is where sometimes startups help in a way where you don't expect them to. Is like, for me, just quickly on this, when I was in Korea when the COVID happened and started to spread here, and I was actually amazed by the ability to find masks at the time from my map on my phone. And I think that is something which is a bit different, but it also shows how technology can help your health without using your bio data, which I thought was quite interesting because it was really helping us understand what was happening and how to get the masks that we had to get without knowing anything about my actual bio data, just my location. So I just want to share that, but keen to hear what you guys think about that.
If I may, maybe I think so. I think you have to share in which country you were, because I think there have been so many different responses depending on the country you were and the regulatory environment. China has nothing to do with what happened with Korea. Has nothing to do with what happened in France. So at least in France, what happened was a quicker. I call really the pandemic a catalyzer in digital health. Whatever was related to health got accelerated by investment and a magnitude that was never expected. For us, for instance, in our roadmap, we were working on remote monitoring and connected mirrors that was checking your health. With the COVID right now, the very fact that you go, if you have any symptoms, into a hospital or a waiting room of a doctor seems impossible to believe and will never happen again. Meaning there's no way we're going to come back to the fact that when you are feeling sick, first thing you're going to do is go to a doctor, to his office or to the hospital. The first thing you will try to do, at least that's what the change of behavior, is book an online appointment into one of those platforms that will allow you to book you and do some telemedicine consultation before you do anything else. And that's going to be for the majority of the population. So for me, the fact that most doctors in France, we were pretty traditional, saying we have an excellent system and you will go to the doctor at almost no cost, taking your car, waiting in their room and checking your symptoms. There will be no return to the previous situation. So in our very example, what happened was we have developed mirrors that were able to check your temperature and do symptom checks. This is going to become mainstream, and we have received orders that were really science fiction when the COVID happened, and now we don't even know how to fulfill demand. So I see this as the telemedicine part and all the underlying necessary technology is the one that will change people's behavior on the long run, and that will include all the connected device that we are building that will be part of the telemedicine and the telediagnosis.
Yeah, this is. I feel young. You wanna say something, so you should feel free to go. Or Taegeun also wants to speak, so you guys can go.
All right. I think very interesting questions. We are during the pandemic. I think what we realized, everyone, that we spend more time and money on preventing than actually trying to take care of people who already got the virus, right? All population around the globe, everyone start to wear mask, buy sanitizer and wash their hands all the time. So I think more and more people are aware of the importance of preventive, and a lot of people, I think, as previously mentioned, they stay home, right? Instead of when they're sick, instead of trying to go to the hospital, they stay home and try to use whatever device they have, right? The temperature measurer, blood pressure measurer, and trying to help themselves, and also use the teleconferencing and telemedicine to get consultation. So I think we are, I think, living in the greatest transformation of healthcare due to pandemic that we all go through globally. And I think this is an opportunity where we can even do more now that people are getting used to and understand the power of the prevention. So I think, to answer the question, I think that case study, not necessarily it's a case study, but it is a study that everyone realize how important that is.
And I would like to just speak something. So yeah, I think that this is also related to the last issue. So the regulation. I think that this is quite different from other guys, but in my opinion, fundamentally, digital healthcare. If digital healthcare device or solution would like to be succeeded in the as an industry, and it should I think that it should be on the regulatory process, because like our solution just take eye photos and predict the cardiovascular event with the cardiac CT accuracy, or just give some therapeutics with simple chatting or simple digital therapeutics. If this is just not on the regulatory, and then it could not be the industry, I guess. So and it also links that under the regulatory, and then it should be some specific targeting, specific groups in the medical area. So I think that in managing COVID pandemic is quite hard mission for digital healthcare, because digital healthcare company just usually think about that, specify some groups and would like to solve that group's problems. But COVID situation is just for all. So yeah, so I've seen some hospitals just tracking with the camera and tracking the patients, the visitors, and just find the risk of the COVID. But this could not be the solution. So I guess that there are some solutions, digital healthcare solutions are very good to be on COVID pandemic situation, but could not solve the COVID situation directly, I guess. So yeah, like our solution, comparing the last steps, like just needling and the cardiac CT is very complex and quite some contact way. But with our solutions, patients could take eye photos with a mask. So this is very fit on the COVID situation, but it could not solve the corona pandemic situation, I guess. So yeah, this is my opinion for this.
Yeah. On a little note on my side, I think we were all affected by COVID, every sector, and healthcare, of course, too. And perhaps we can say that we all understood that early diagnostic is crucial to maintain a good health. And what I observed during COVID is there is already error in diagnostic, but we saw a shortage of specialists, doctors burned out, more detection error, sometimes characterization error also, and a lot of data were generated and not used. And I sincerely believe that artificial intelligence can improve accuracy in the diagnostic, but only if we include the doctors and their concerns to identify the need. So this is why on our side, we're trying to create a platform that brings transversality. Let's imagine like a Netflix that you connect to hospitals, and instead of having a catalog of movies, you have a catalog of artificial intelligence. And I think it's crucial, and that I felt it was a bit accelerated now with COVID, to give these algorithms, to try them out, to have an opinion about them, and make our own conclusion, but while trying them.
It's very interesting. The Ilsong, Thomas, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask. So I think it's interesting perspective on how this pandemic somewhat allows regulatory bodies to be more lenient about adopting new technologies. So, for example, a lot of the new vaccines are being administered without the regular approval. Right now, most of them are under emergency use authorization, at least in the United States. And so the regulatory bodies have certain leniency around pandemic, and therefore they were more lenient in terms of adopting new concepts and new technologies. And so one of the things, maybe just to elaborate a little bit more on my understanding, is that when this was about a year ago, when back then the President of the United States, Donald Trump, tried to say chloroquine was sort of the cure for the drug. And our company, using UK Biobank 500,000 people worth of genomic and clinical data, we were quickly be able to use that data to predict the level of side effects using chloroquine for normal people would be more than 25%. So we already had that data, and we didn't think chloroquine was the right drug to cure, even if it had the efficacy because of the side effect issues. So one of the things that Cipherome as a company will try to do is to finish our kind of platform, but have this platform be available to outside researchers in the form of research hub. So what we would do is, like Marwan said, we'll basically have the AI deep learning engine with all the data and algorithm that we currently have, but provide the interface to the outside researchers or anybody for that matter, trying to enter certain set of data and trying to use drug responses using our engine. So make it more public. That way we would be able to collectively improve the outcome of the prediction, and yet we don't necessarily need to know all the details of each party's private data, or even have access to some of those things, because it's sort of open platform. So I think with this pandemic type of crisis, letting regulatory bodies to be more lenient about adopting new technologies, and some of the companies are willing to share their internal knowledge and technology with outsiders, I think will accelerate the digital health outcome and improvement in the future, my opinion.
Yeah, this is I mean, maybe I can add something very quickly on this, because we within our tool and our search engine, we see startups as they emerge. And when COVID happened, we actually tried to look at improving our algorithms to figure out which companies were actually trying to build technologies to find COVID. And so what we realized was really looking at the pandemic, it was quite impressive to see how we became more aware of the problems, and therefore more willing to build solutions. And I think if I don't have a direct answer to the question, I would say that what really impressed me was to see all of the startups, and particularly startups I thought were quite interesting in the matter, trying to figure out how they could use their technologies or their services to try and help and have an impact on the pandemic. And I think regulations have been mentioned a lot, and I would say that it's probably where I have the most questions, as in I'm wondering how much are we willing to push regulations to be able to see things and do things we haven't thought about, because technologies allow us to do such things. And so I think what you're saying is basically along those lines, is saying, actually, if we allow ourselves to use the data that we have, and if we do it ethically, and if we think about how we're going to use it, then there's a lot of benefits to have through the usage of what you guys are building, because it helps us detect problems or personalize treatments or connect people together. And I think this is quite interesting. So I'm very conscious that we're soon running out of time. I see one question, so I'm going to read it. It's from Miriam. So what do you think would be the biggest challenge for the countries to have a more inclusive digital health post-COVID-19? I mean, I don't want to jump into, but I feel like this is very related to what I just said, actually, which is quite interesting. Does anybody have something to say on that, or should I just try and jump in?
Maybe I want to add just two cents. I think, as you said, the regulations has to be a lot more lean and everything. I think that's very important. But I think one of the things that we realize also, now that everyone is interested in healthcare, politicians are using this opportunity and use the data or digital data or whatever, regulation data or clinical data to use for their benefit. And I think that's happening around the globe. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenge. I think, even post-corona, all these politicians trying to manipulate or use, for their benefit, in my opinion.
Maybe I'll build on that. I mean, we have witnessed exactly the same thing. I mean, we just mentioned database of data that could be accessed to actually learn faster, etc. The way we see the world is, at least in our modest view, is there will be a new kind of medicine that we try to call longitudinal medicine, which will time-based medicine. So instead of looking at a current condition at some point, doing some kind of a checkup on someone, there is going to be a new way to look at healthcare and medicine, really data over time. And for all of you who are data scientists, the quality of the data over time and the quality of the data collection is not a decision being made today, and then we need to see today, and we could collect for the interest of the humankind the benefits in 10 years, 20 years, etc. So there's a time for, and so I think the difficulty and the challenge will be to stay consistent in health policy based on everything we just said over time. And a lot of the decisions being made by politicians or from economic interest are mostly motivated by political or economic interest. So the biggest challenge to stay inclusive is to start collecting data and to gather all those data for me in an ethical way, and then allow over time learning to be made, experiment to be made on those new sets of data. And if we are very, very concerned about COVID, but in 2 years we just move to something really cool that is about entertainment, etc., and this consistency of the data collection goes, I mean, all the learning and all the focus we will have built over those last few years will be lost. So I think the long-term consistency of global public policy and local public policy is critical for us to become inclusive. And that will not only benefit to the rich country, which we are partly part of, but that could also be, and most likely be, to the benefit of a developing country who will not have the infrastructure to build this over time.
Yeah, I mean, this is fascinating. I mean, I think it raises really the question, which is broader than healthcare. Actually, is we've seen COVID-19 accelerate many things, and digital healthcare is definitely one of them. And you can even think of the ability to see a doctor on your phone instead of having to see it for real. In China, I've seen robots going into patient rooms. But this is really a good question to know, like, what's going to happen when the urgency disappears. We only have a few minutes left. I see there's one question, so I'm very keen to make sure we answer it before we end. So I'm going to read. It's from Michael again, and he asks, there are an increase in cyber attacks and leaks on hospital data. Do you think cyber protection would be vital towards protecting patients' data? That's kind of a big one. Does anybody has something to say, or should I try to jump in?
My 2 cents here. I think protecting the data is critical for people to trust it, and this is why we see all this regulatory and the GDPR. For example, in Switzerland, I think the way we do it here is that the data cannot leave the hospital. So we have to do on-premise installation, have a server, and I believe that cyber attacks won't stop. But the way to protect it is to actually make sure that the patient data is safe. And it's quite a complicated question, because the safest and the hardest then the access to the market. So we would love to have just access through a cloud and sell and make these algorithms available through a cloud everywhere around the world. But I think it's very important to take in consideration both the safety and also access of the algorithm. So to answer the question, do you think cyber protection would be vital towards protecting patient data? Yes, of course.
All right. Well, thank you. I think it's. I'm afraid we have to end the discussion. I mean, it was a real privilege to talk to all of you. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I mean, I see a future where what you're creating is going to be the new normal, and I'm quite excited about that. So thank you so much for having been on that discussion. Really enjoyed discussing. I wish we could do this for another hour. But I'm afraid time is against us. So I think most of us are going to still be around. You know our names. We're very easy to contact. So if you have any questions or anything you want to, any subjects you want to discuss with us, feel free to connect. We're on social media too. All of our companies are. So excited to hear from you, and thank you again for your time today.